So I have 1-inch hexagon papers here and 1.5-inch hexagon papers. I use the pre-cut papers because I like the accuracy and I just really don't want to take the time to print my own and cut them all out. But that is an option if you would like. You can find templates in any of the patterns that I produce. Regardless of whether you're doing 1-inch or 1.5-inch hexagons, the technique is the same. I just have patterns using both, so I wanted to demonstrate them both. For the 1-inch hexagons, 2.5-inch squares work great for this size. For the 1.5-inch hexagons, I cut a square of fabric 4 inches. Now you can baste them without having to trim the fabric to a hexagon shape, although you can do that as well. When I thread baste and when I glue baste, I always take my glue pen and I just put a dab of glue on the paper and then place it centered on the back of the fabric. This will hold your paper in place while you're stitching. Sometimes the papers tend to shift a little bit as you go around the corners. So I'm going to do that on the 1.5-inch as well. So for thread basting, I use Aurifil 50 weight thread. I've got a regular sewing needle, tie a knot in mine. So you're going to fold over the fabric on one of the edges, give it a good finger press so you have a nice crisp edge. Then you're going to fold over the fabric. You're going to take your needle and you're going to insert it in this bottom fabric and then bring it up out the top fabric without piercing the paper. So I have a knot, I've pulled it through, and then I will take a stitch by doing the same thing, bringing my needle in on the bottom fabric and up the top fabric. And then you just continue going around the hexagon, folding each corner, giving it a nice finger press. You want the edges to be crisp, the corners to be sharp. This is my preferred method of basting. I really like the rhythm of having a stack of hexagon papers and a stack of fabric squares, several needles threaded, and just basting a whole bunch at a time. Okay, when you get to this last corner, you're going to do your stitch like you did with all the other corners. And then I usually take one more pass through, and then before I pull the thread all the way through, I place my needle inside that loop and then it forms a knot. That's all there is to it. Very easy. Now I'm going to do one more 1-inch hexagon with a piece of fabric that I've already trimmed to the hexagon shape. I just loosely trimmed around, maybe using a 3/8 inch seam. I just want to show you the difference on the back in case that is something that concerns you. Light colored fabric, sometimes you're able, when you're finished with your project, to see through to the back. So in those cases, you may want to have your fabric cut a little bit neater than just using a square fabric. So you can see from the front, they look exactly the same. Also with thread basting, the way that I do my thread basting technique, and since I don't go through the papers, you will not see your thread on the front, and you won't have to take out your thread either after you've stitched the shapes to each other. So this is the difference on the back. This is just a 2.5 inch square, and then this is the fabric that I trimmed in the shape of a hexagon. If you're thread basting a larger size hexagon or square, you would follow the same technique. So on this larger hexagon, I'm going to demonstrate glue basting. So I've already, you remember I already put a little bit of glue on the back of my paper, and I've already put it onto the fabric square. I use the Sew Line glue pen. I like the fact that it's got a smaller tip. So you're going to just start on any edge and just run a little bit of glue along the edge of your paper, but not on the edge. And then fold your fabric over, and you work your way around the hexagon doing the same thing. You don't want to put the glue right on the edge, because then it will make your needle kind of sticky when you're stitching your shapes together. So just a little bit of glue goes a long way, and right along the edge, but not on the edge. So other than the size, from the front you can't tell the difference between a hexagon that's been thread basted or one that's been glue basted. I'll demonstrate one more time glue basting a hexagon, and this time the fabric has been trimmed to the shape of a hexagon. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on my paper so it stays in place as I baste. So just a little bit of glue, and I do go on to the fabric. If you have a rotating mat, that also comes in really handy when you're glue basting these. I tend to forget to bring mine out when I'm doing this. So the back does look a little bit neater, especially in the bigger size. So there you go. That's the back of the glue basted hexagon that's been trimmed, and then the back of one that hasn't.